Divergent thinking is so important, then why aren't we better at it? The reason is that we've been taught by school and society that there's only one right answer to every problem. We're afraid to face judgment or to try new things because if we don't get the one right answer, we might fail. To illustrate this, let's look at a pen. What is a pen used for? This is not a trick question. You probably said that a pen is used for writing, and you're correct. Now let's look at the same question through the eyes of a 3-year-old. What might a 3-year-old use a pen for? There's 100 different ways. Maybe a 3-year-old sees the pen as a sword, or a magic wand, or to throw at somebody, or a nose picker, or a back scratcher, or as a bridge for ants. There's no limit to the answers you might get from a 3-year-old. The problem is that a 3-year-old is told over and over as he gets older and turns into an adult that a pen is only used for writing. So they lose their imagination and they lose that ability for divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is very important to understand and to be able to do effectively. In order to be successful at divergent thinking or brainstorming, it's important to understand some of the guidelines for divergent thinking. I'm going to break these down and talk about them individually in the next few slides. First, it's important to forego judgment. Divergent thinking is just coming up with ideas, coming up with possibilities. So if Karen throws out an idea on how to throw a holiday party, and then Jim comes in and says, no, we tried that years ago, or that's a silly idea, then it's going to stop everyone else from sharing their ideas. You should be open to different ideas. Judging ideas or convergent thinking will come much later on in the process. You also want to come up with wild and crazy ideas. You don't want to just stick to those ideas that you've seen done before, or the ones that you know are going to work. You want to come up with almost impossible ideas. For example, let's say we're trying to figure out a way to get from building A to building B. We could ride a bike, we could walk, we could take a car, we could take a bus. But why not say something crazy like, let's ride on the backs of unicorns? Of course that's impossible. But maybe someone in the room was in Lowe's the other day, and while they were walking down a building material aisle, there was a 4-year-old that was talking on and on about unicorns. Because someone brought up the idea of unicorns, that person may be able to connect that with a building material that could help them solve the problem. Coming up with wild and crazy ideas pushes the limits of what we know is going to work, and it advances our opportunity for innovative ideas. You also want to come up with lots and lots of ideas. If you spend a few hours generating hundreds of ideas and only 10 of those might work, those are going to be better than the 10 ideas that you only spend 30 minutes thinking of. There's something in creativity called the third thirds rule. And that says that the first third of ideas that you come up with are going to be pretty typical. They're going to be things that you've done before or that you've seen work. That second third is going to be a little more creative and a little more abstract. But it's that third third of ideas that you come up with, they're going to be the ones that are innovative and they're going to change the way you operate and think about things. So take the time and come up with lots of ideas. You also want to build on the ideas of others. It's not just one person coming up with these ideas, but everyone's ideas. So let's say Charles comes up with one idea, and that inspires Susan to come up with a better idea. And at the end, George comes up with the winning idea. Susan and Charles both contributed. It wasn't just George coming up with the idea. Creativity is a team sport, and we should treat it as such. And finally, it's important to include play. Play is something that we neglect as adults, but being playful helps us become more uninhibited and helps us not to worry about what people are thinking about us or what our role is supposed to be. When we let go of those inhibitions, then we're allowed to come up with more creative ideas and innovative solutions. So be playful, move around, play with ideas, play with objects, do whatever it takes to help you come up with more creative ideas. So what are some ways to promote divergent thinking? One way is to do something familiar in a different way. I mentioned in the first activity When you did the doodle with your opposite hand, you increased your cognitive flexibility. That's because we're so used to doing things in a certain way that we don't think about it and our mind isn't actually working. However, if we do things or familiar tasks in new ways, it forces our brains to think and activate in new ways. Another way is to not settle for the first right answer. A lot of the times we settle for the first correct solution, but it may not be the best solution. That's why we need to take time and keep searching and trying to find other options. Divergent thinking is one of the most important concepts to understand in creativity because there's more than one right way to do things. And if we're open to other right ways, we're going to be open to new possibilities and to more creative outcomes.